It ain't new, but it's new to me, and I'm excited about it. I picked up this case CX80 off of Buddy Clint from CNC Equipment. You guys haven't seen his channel. He's made some appearances on mine before. Great guy. He does a lot of buying and selling of used iron. So I was over there touring his place a few weeks ago and saw this thing sitting in the lot, and I had just missed the same model machine in our auction the day before. This one is a lot nicer. So worked out a deal with him, and now it's mine. I've been kind of looking around for an upgrade from my Komatsu PC75 for a while, and I believe this is it. Alright, so Clint worked me a good deal on that CX80, and I was able to convince him to throw me in 2 sets of winches just like this. And what these are is actually a drawworks setup off of a Midwestern hydraulic pipe layer conversion. So what Clint does is buys these side booms at auction, I guess, and gets them for good deals, and then converts them back to dozers, which is how they started life anyways. So I saw these things laying up at Clint's place when we were there, and I said, well, I'll buy that hoe. You just got to throw in these winches. And so he did. We got that set. I got another set over there on the skid steer fork still. And I don't know what we're going to use those for yet, but we're going to use them for something eventually. All right, well, it's been a couple months since I've had this machine. I haven't used it a whole lot, but I've used it for a few little things around here, but nothing worth filming yet. Today's going to change that. It was a brisk 4 degrees this morning at my house when I got up. We might be up to 8 or 10 right now. So we're going to see how the old case does at cold starting. It should be pretty good. These newer machines often don't really much mind, but here goes nothing. Yeah, that was about as unremarkable as cold starts get. So it'll probably do some sort of auto warm-up cycle. It only ran the glow plugs for maybe like 5 seconds. It was nothing. That's pretty dang good. I'm happy with that. We'll let this thing warm up a while, and then we're gonna start digging stuff. Yeah, she's had a while to warm up here. Oh yeah, we got heat going in the cab already. This thing is deluxe. This is too nice for me. Well, it's all nice and quiet in here. Really gonna get spoiled with this machine. Can you guys see how much slop is in that coupler up there? The bucket's just flopping all around. We're gonna have to do something about that because the rest of the machine is tight, but that coupler makes it look like it's not. If you just went by that coupler, you'd think this was a clapped out piece of junk. I like the backup beeper on this thing too. It automatically shuts itself off after it's run for a couple seconds. Much less annoying to those working around you. This machine's got a cool feature too that I like. It's got a throttle button right here on the joystick, so you can just hit this button and it throttles the machine up. Hit it again, throttles it down. It's pretty handy. You don't have to reach down here and mess with anything. I know that seems like such a small thing, but it's handy. Alright, so what we're using the case for today is setting a little culvert box in here. I kind of have the ground all swelled around here to where this creates a big lake, and it can't drain because I have this built up through here. So we get water standing in here, but that's kind of the way I wanted it because I need this built up. So I'm putting in a culvert right here, run 12-inch pipe from the culvert box all the way down out over the hill over there. And this is just catching rainwater. I'm also gonna put in an under drain along the driveway here to keep the driveway just drier, basically. If you can keep water out from underneath your road base, it helps. Well, we're getting real close to our depth now. Got to make sure I don't over dig. Austin's over there fixing up the box. It's a used box, so it had some mortar on it. He had to chisel off with a demo hammer and drill a couple holes for lifting. We'll stick some pins in the box and hook onto those to lift with. Just taking it nice and slow here. I'm gonna put 4 inches of clean 2B gravel underneath the box, level that up nice, make sure we have good drainage. Get all the big chunks away from the edge of the ditch so nothing rolls down and bruises Satchmo's pride. One thing I've noticed about this machine compared to my Komatsu, the blade here, which I commonly use for trying to hold myself, basically, like I'm sure you saw me I was pulling myself into the hole a few times when I was trying to break through this hard ground. If you put the blade down, you can kind of use it to lock yourself in place and prevent that from happening. Well, the blade on the Komatsu seems to bite better than this one does. And there's not even a cutting edge left on the Komatsu one. I mean, it's worn slap off, so it's kind of weird that that one would work better, but it seems to. It's also my first machine with street pads. I don't think I've ever even really run a machine with street pads before, and that's like these rubber-coated regular pads is what they are. Nothing bites in ice, but the street pads are definitely not liking the ice at all. What do we like, Aust?
Gotta go down a little bit.
What about on that side? I feel like this side was higher.
Well, I feel like you're standing right in the laser path.
I am standing right in the laser path. That's usually not helpful. All right, down a touch. Better to under than over dig, Aust. Well, we got our grade right. I'm gonna go grab a bucket of 2B, toss her in there. We can set our box. All right, Austin's rigging up a hook into our rigging so that we can swing the box. All right, well, the old case performed valiantly there. It swung that box around like nothing. I don't know exactly what that box weighs. I think it's probably around 4,000 pounds, but it handled it pretty darn well, even swinging around off the side there. This thing is quite good at picking the weight. Another reason I want to replace this coupling on this machine is it's a manual coupler versus having a hydraulic quick attach coupler. I could have easily just stayed in the cab, hit a button, dumped the bucket off, and it had a lifting eye on the end of the coupler and been able to pick this box, but instead this coupler doesn't even have a lifting eye, so even if I dump the bucket off of there, I'm still left with no lifting points. Now with the box culvert set, I can start digging the ditch for the 12-inch line out from the box behind the machine down over the hill. We'll see how straight of a line I can keep. We do have a buried conduit from the Connex box to the building I have to cross, so that can take a little bit of time when I get there. All right, guys, here we are nearly 6 months after taking delivery of my new Case CX80, and as you may have guessed, it is going to phase out my Komatsu PC75. I've delayed the making of this video because I wanted ample time for me to actually run this thing, get some footage of it working and doing some jobs, and getting a feel for the machine myself so that we could give a good, solid review of it. I've got quite a few hours in the seat of the PC75, and that machine has treated me super well over the years. Engine still runs perfectly fine, trouble-free. It just needs a ton of little things, and I was at the point where, do you dump a bunch of money into a machine to get it back up to 100%, and do you just sell that one to offset the cost of a new one? This is not a brand new machine. This is a 2018 model with about 1,400 hours on it, and I picked this up from our good friend, as you saw, Clint from CNC Equipment. This was not a decision I made lightly. I get very attached to my equipment. I did not want to let go of the Komatsu, but there is no purpose in having two machines of the same size sitting here. I don't use them super frequently, although I would like to get back into doing more paying jobs. YouTube has kind of taken over my life, and I've been having fun working here at the farm doing my own projects rather than having to go out and work for other people. But there are plenty of days when I just want to go sit in a machine and move dirt all day. So like I said, I feel like I've had enough time in the case now to give you a good comparison, so let's do a little walk around and see what the differences are, and maybe you guys understand why I went the route I did as far as getting the case. Right off the bat, the guy that already bought this machine, because it is sold already, I still think there's a lot of life left in this machine. It just didn't seem to make sense to me to put the money into it to make it nice, like as nice as it could be. And then even if you did that, you're not going to have that. Like, no matter how much money you dump into this machine, it's still not going to be this machine. So that was my first line of thought there. Second of all is the configuration here. So these are actually in the same weight class. This one's like almost 18,000 pounds. This one is just a little bit over 18,000 pounds if my memory serves. Physically, the case does look quite a bit bigger to me. I don't know about to you guys. It definitely sits up higher, so you're increasing your visibility. When the higher you sit, the nicer it is as an operator to kind of see what's going on around you. That being said, the Komatsu also has very good visibility out of it. Part of what helps the Komatsu's visibility is the lower setting hood and cowl and all that stuff, whereas the case is definitely elevated quite a bit higher, so you do have more of a blind spot around the case than the Komatsu does, but you can see down into a hole or something better from the case than you could from the Komatsu. Next consideration was the undercarriage. This undercarriage is worn, but still very usable. There's still life left in it. I fixed that idler that had broke on this thing. Well, last year we've had to put a new idler on this thing, and then it's back to 100% usable. No more issues. I wish I would have done that years ago. I thought that idler was going to cost me, $1,200-$1,500, and it ended up only costing me about $400. So that was something I was really kicking myself about. I should have done that a long time ago instead of putting up with a floppy, worn out undercarriage. Putting a new idler on there made a world of difference, as you can imagine. The undercarriage on the case here is in excellent condition because it's a low hour unit. I'm guaranteeing that this is the original undercarriage on there. There's virtually no pin wear at all. The sprockets are in excellent shape, and we have quite a bit of rail height left. Probably hasn't really been tracked around all that much in the hours on this machine. But the main difference is these pads that are on this machine. So these are what are called road liner pads, and these are not a steel pad. They are predominantly rubber. There is a steel core to them, but they are mostly rubber. And there's some good and some bad with that. If you're digging in hard frozen ground or something, there's pretty much no traction with those things. They slide all over the place. But regular steel pads do not do very well in those conditions either, so you have to weigh that out. The nice thing about these is that you can run them right into the shop. You're not going to tear up the floor. You can run them right across somebody's driveway or straight down the road, and they won't leave a single mark. So they are excellent in that regard. They are better than rubber tracks, like say on a Mini, where you have one solid rubber track, like on a Mini excavator or a skid steer that you would see. I think they're better than those for the fact that they are individual pads. If you do break a pad somehow, you can replace just that pad. They also run a traditional track chain, which I much prefer to the one-piece solid rubber tracks. So the next big difference between the Komatsu and the case is your boom and stick combination here. I don't know the numbers right off the top of my head, but you can very clearly see that the dipper stick on the case is quite a bit longer than the Komatsu, and I believe the boom is also longer as well. So consequently, that gets you a greater reach from the case than from the Komatsu. That's definitely nice, especially working with like brush clearing and stuff. You don't have to track as far. You can just reach right out and snag something without having to track over to it. We're talking about maybe 3 or 4 extra feet out of the case than the Komatsu. Let's flip up the hood on the Komatsu and have a gander at what we had going on in here. It's hard to tell with the sunlight and everything probably, but under the hood here is a Yanmar 4-cylinder engine producing somewhere in the neighborhood of 75 horse if my memory serves. And it is great. I love this engine. This thing has never ever given me any issues at all. It always fires right up as long as you got a battery. It'll crank right up in the coldest of conditions. It does have a grid heater, but I've never even used it. I don't think it's hooked up actually. But super reliable. I don't think there's anything wrong with that engine. The Yanmars are great. I am a big fan of those. If we flip open the hood on the case here, we can see this has an Isuzu engine that is also 4 cylinders. The big difference is this one's only putting out like 56 horsepower. And I was very concerned about that when I was looking at this machine. I thought, why would I go backwards in power, especially when this machine is slightly bigger? You would think that it should be more horsepower. Since I've had this thing and ran it a bit, there I found absolutely zero lack of power. I think that it's got plenty of power actually. So I'm no hydraulic expert, but I do know that in the 18 years that separate these two machines, they have made quite a few leaps and bounds as far as hydraulic efficiencies, and you can do more work with less horsepower now from a hydraulic system. So that's kind of nice. They also seem to have made the hydraulics smoother. You kind of have more pinpoint accuracy than the Komatsu. Komatsu's not bad at all. I definitely am always been impressed with how smooth that machine is, but it's not a brand new machine, that's for sure. While we're under the hood, take a look around this thing. See how clean it is? That's one of the things that sold me on it. And this isn't, you can tell when somebody has just gone in here at the steam Jenny and cleaned it up. This is not that. This is factory original clean. Doesn't look like there's ever been a leak or a big spill in here or anything. The only residue kind of staining you can see at all is right here around the oil fill cap, where I'm imagining you probably spilled just a couple drops when you're filling it with oil. We'll climb up and have a look inside of the cab of the Komatsu. There is nothing wrong with this cab. It's a modest cab. There is space for a tall fellow like me. I find it easy to get your feet on the pedals and do what you need to do. The seat is, you know, it's tolerable. It's not as bad as running an old cable shovel or something, but it's not the most comfy seat in the world. The cab is very rattly, very noisy. As you can see, it's made out of this kind of plastic that just starts to disintegrate after it gets so old. This stuff is all very brittle at this point. I don't want to break it any more than it already has. This screen actually snapped from the mounts a few years ago. I was just tracking down the driveway, and the vibration of just tracking down the driveway made this thing just snap and just started hanging there by the wires. So I've got that zip tied up because the parts to fix that properly are unavailable. I guess you could probably spend some time with a plastic welder and get that fixed up, but you know, the plastic is liable to snap again anyhow. The control panel is very oxidized. It's hard to read your gauges. They do function. Everything still works there, but you just can't really see it very well. Controls have a little bit of slop in them, kind of clunky. Not bad, they do what they need to do. It's just kind of a no frills setup. Not that I need frills, but they are nice. Now we compare that to this case. The cab is actually partially what sold me on this thing. Usually machines in this class have a pretty snug fitting cab on a guy like me. I am 6'2", and my friends love to make fun of me every time I mention that in a video, but it's the truth. I have long legs, and it is tough for me to fit comfortably in a lot of smaller equipment. This seat is ultra comfortable. As soon as I sat in this thing, it was just like, oh yeah, this is a Cadillac. The seat And the cab in this machine has the same feel as a much larger, newer machine, and that makes it very nice to run. Got really good visibility out of this side. The other machine kind of has some panel here that restricts your look down at that track out there. Got really good, nice big mirrors all around that can get you good visibility behind you. Nice big, ample, clear sunroof. There is a small sunroof in the Komatsu, but it is very oxidized and you can't really see out of it anymore. Window rolls up very nice, all that jazz. The screen is really nice in this machine, because you see we have a backup camera worked right into it there, so you can always just glance down and see what's going on behind you, which is super helpful in an excavator like this. So in addition to a comfy seat, we've got lots of leg room in the case, which is good for my long legs. And the most crucial element, we have air conditioning. There's nothing worse than spending an entire day in that sweat box over there. I've done it. I mean, I'm grateful to have had that excavator. It's done a lot of work for me. But when you got to spend all day in something, being able to just come over here and hit that temperature down button is super nice. So while we're in here, I'll show you the ID tag. In case you didn't know, Case machines are not actually made by Case, or at least not their excavators. This is made by Tsudamoto, I guess is how you'd say that. I'm not sure, I'm not Japanese, I apologize if I'm butchering the pronunciation, but that's who makes this machine. They also make the link belt machines. If you see a link belt, they are the identical machines with different paint jobs as far as I know. So all the details of both machines really just boils down here to the business end, which is the part that actually does the work, the buckets. This is the bucket that came with this machine, and I've absolutely despised this bucket from day one, but for some reason never found the need to upgrade. I did want to. I've looked at 100 different buckets. Trying to find something with the proper pin setup is a little bit difficult. Yes, you can cut the ears off and weld on the proper ears. For some reason, I just never justified breaking down and buying the proper bucket for this thing. My main complaint is you don't have a flat bottom. It's kind of built like an old school backhoe bucket where you got a big crescent shape to it, versus this bucket has a nice heel, and that's like a modern excavator bucket, and that's much what I prefer to run. The other big issue with this thing is the teeth. It's got these 3 giant dinosaur teeth on it rather than appropriately sized smaller teeth like these guys. So if you put 4 appropriately sized teeth across there, maybe even 5 would fit nicely. It makes it much nicer for raking brush or cutting a smooth grade at the bottom of a ditch, something like that. Whereas these are almost like ripper teeth, and you get these big 3 lines that just come through all your trenches. You can heel it back down with the bottom of the bucket, but it just doesn't dig as nice as something like that does. I will give those teeth credit, however. If you get into some rock or you're busting up some concrete, those things will chomp right through it, whereas the smaller teeth do not do as well of a job. So this machine came with the quick coupler on it as a hydraulic coupler. This is an older coupler though, of course. It's probably about the same age as the machine, which the machine's a 2000 model. The coupler functions. It lets the bucket on and off, but they have just made advancements in couplers which make it a little more forgiving. If you don't have the exact proper pin size, you can still get a lot of attachments to connect with modern couplers. I did add the Workbrow thumb on here. This is a main pin hydraulic thumb from Workbrow. That was probably the best money I've ever spent. Having a hydraulic thumb on a machine is so handy, especially for doing clearing work. If you guys have been watching the channel for a while, this machine has done probably 80 or 90% of the clearing, coming all the way down through the woods, over 1,800 feet of driveway into this whole big area where the buildings are now. This machine has done all that work, and for that alone, it's paid for itself in my mind. That's a lot of clearing and saved me a ton of work. Sidebar, I remember when I got this thumb, I thought this was kind of a stupid build, and after you use it for a while, that's awesome. The way they have just the 2 teeth sticking down there, I can actually just grab a hold of limbs and snip them right off like a pair of shears almost with the teeth. So that did kind of work out with the big teeth in that regard. So that's the Komatsu. We have an older coupler with a crappy bucket and a pretty good thumb. We actually downgraded. The Case does not have a hydraulic coupler. It has a manual coupler, so to drop the bucket, you have to pull out this little linch pin. This pin pulls out, and then you can let go of the bucket. Now, I don't know what brand this coupler is. It just has some welded numbers on there. I can't see a brand anywhere. But it's a piece of junk. If I pick up the bucket and wiggle it around, this thing slops all over the place. It actually makes the machine kind of look like it's wore out, but it's not. It's all in the coupler here. You can see there's like a 1/4 inch of slop at each ear on the pin, and the rest of the pins and bushings all the way on up the stick are nice and tight. That coupler is terrible. So we got to get I could live without it being a hydraulic coupler, but the other thing that's terrible about this coupler is that it is a backhoe style, kind of like an old Case 580. You've got a wide set of ears in the front, and on the back a much narrower set of ears. So what that does is limit you. You cannot flip your bucket 180 degrees to dig up underneath something, or there's 100 different reasons why you'd flip your bucket. I've done it many times with this machine, and it is super handy when you need it. That is a limitation that I do not like. So we've got a coupler that I don't like, and then of course there's a big bare spot right here where I need a thumb. I'm not going to have a machine that does not have a thumb on it in this category. You get into a bigger excavator, maybe you don't need a thumb on it, but a machine this size, I don't know why they don't just all come with thumbs. They are super handy, and for the work I do, I don't want to try to live without one. So we're going to have to get a thumb and a coupler, and then probably a different smaller bucket, because this is the only bucket I have for this machine currently. This is a 36-inch bucket. It's a good bucket. I like the way it's built and everything. The teeth are nicely spaced, but the ears are not going to work with the new coupler we're going to get, so I'll probably have to get a different set of ears and make this bucket work with the new coupler, and then we will also have to get a narrower bucket so that we have some options. You don't always want to dig a 36-inch hole. I could probably walk around for an hour and point out little different things that are worn out on this machine and things that aren't on this machine, but it'll pretty much just suffice to say that this one needs a lot of little love and TLC. This one doesn't. This one's turnkey, ready to go to work, doesn't really want for anything other than that stupid coupler. So like I said, this machine has about 1,400 hours on it. Unfortunately, in that 1,400 hours, the previous owners did manage to put a little ding in the side panel there and scratch the counterweight up. So actually, in demonstrating this, I'm seeing why that scratch is there. Is because that point right where we're at sticks out further than anything else, I believe, and I didn't really think that I had much hangover there at all. Okay, delete everything I said about being a zero tail swing machine. So both of these machines are what you would call a low clearance radius machine. They don't have zero tail swing, but they don't have a lot either. This thing sticks over about 18 inches from what I can see. And I think the Komatsu is about the same, maybe a little bit more. So I just measured both of the counterweight overhangs myself here, and we actually have a little bit more on the case, but I'll forgive it because it's a little bit bigger machine. We have 18 inches on the Komatsu and 20 inches on the case. Both, respectively, are a nice tight swing radius. You really don't have to worry about too much behind you when you're swinging. As you can see, even though the Komatsu is the smaller swing radius at 18 inches, it still had lots of events where it's swung into things and taken off the paint. For the record, I would like to confidently state that I don't think I put hardly any of those scratches on there. The only thing I've ever swung into that I can recollect is some brush piles. Just tree tops and miscellaneous brush. I don't think I've ever rubbed against the building or anything like that. So, go me. Well guys, it's the case's first time into the shop here, and it's not broken. We have some upgrades to be putting on. Upgrades I'm pretty excited about. Upgrades that you guys are gonna have to wait until the next video to see, unfortunately. Real quick, before you guys click off of this video, do me a big favor. Leave a comment down below and let me know your perception or experience with these case excavators. Tell me what you think about them, good, bad, ugly, indifferent. And as we discussed, link belts are the same. So if you've run a link belt anywhere near this era, it's the same exact thing. So let me know about that too. I know this video is a bit different than our normal content, but it's good to switch it up once in a while. So if you like this video, do me a big favor, hit that thumbs up button down below. It doesn't take but a second of your time, and it really helps out the channel. Now, that being said, if you would like to help support the channel in a little more direct fashion, and you're concerned about your fashion, you can head on over to dieselcreek.com, pick yourself up some sweet swag over there. We've got hats, new hoodies over there in the store. These are heavyweight hoodies. They feel kind of like a Carhartt almost, and I'm a big fan. So head on over to the store, dieselcreek.com. As always, link is down in the description. So until the next time, guys, thanks for watching. I'll catch you later.